Welcome, everyone. My name is Felipe. I'm with the Charter for Compassion. Happy Golden Rule Day. We welcome everyone to this fifth panel on Golden Rule Day on the one-on-one conversation with Donna Murphy and Cheryl Gravy. Thank you so much for joining us. And let me just introduce you. So Cheryl Gravy currently serves as the National Organizer and Director of Engaging Differences Program for the National Institute for Civil Discourse. She's focused on building civic capacity to engage differences productively and bridge divides through civil discourse. Prior to working with NICD, she's worked on the national level with the League of Women Voters, the labor movement, and for a member of Congress, leading several initiatives where people united, learned together, and created meaningful change. Welcome, Cheryl. Then we have Donna Murphy, who has held a variety of leadership roles for Braver Angels since 2017 and is currently director of its one-on-one conversations program. Donna has worked as an economist in the public and private sectors, most recently at the US State Department, lived in Asia for 9 years, is a distinguished Toastmaster, I want to know what that is, and is the author of 3 books. She lives in Fairfax, Virginia. Welcome, Donna. Thank you for both of you to be here and providing this, this great panel with the Golden Rule and for Golden Rule Day.
Well, thank you so much, Felipe, for having us. We are thrilled to be here today, demoing a new one-to-one conversation called The Conversation on the Golden Rule. I created this conversation because, as we all know, the Golden Rule has been around since before Confucius, and wouldn't it be wonderful if we all followed it? Unfortunately, it seems like we are taught it, we learn it, and then we have collective amnesia sometimes in terms of using it. We'll use it maybe sometimes, but boy, if we get involved in some kind of political dialogue, sometimes it just goes right out the window. And so we're hoping that this one-to-one conversation can help remind us about the Golden Rule, how we have succeeded in using it, how maybe we can work harder to use it in the future. And so that's what we're doing here today. Cheryl, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think, thank you, Donna. I think we're just really pleased to be here because I think the Golden Rule is so important because we Americans are really hungry for a respectful tone in politics and public life. And we see the Golden Rule as both a personal practice and a practical strategy for change in this country. You know, personally, following those Golden Rule interactions, as Donna noted, we can disagree with each other respectfully. It is part of a core teaching for many faiths, and it can be part of our own personal reflection about how we hold each other in this country. So I'm pleased to be here.
Thank you both. So I will let you take over the space right here. I will be adding some links to our chat and also on our Facebook page so that you can access some of the things that will be used on this discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Felipe. So before this conversation started, there were a few instructions. And the most important one was to look at a list of various formulations of the Golden Rule that have come down through the ages and choose one that resonates with you. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So we did that in advance. So basically, we're going to, and this conversation, you'll have a link to the conversation guide that's going to be in your chat and then hopefully online too at the Center for Compassion Golden Rule website. So you'll be able to do this on your own. So what we're going to start out with is the goals and the ground rules. Cheryl, would you please share the goals?
Thank you, Donna. Yes. So our goals in this conversation are bringing the Golden Rule front and center in the minds of yourself and your partner, more insight into what the Golden Rule means to you and how you have succeeded by living in the Golden Rule in the past, as well as identifying areas in your life where it's been difficult to practice. And then third, coming up with steps that we might take to practice the Golden Rule in these difficult areas from now on. Donna, you want to share the ground rules?
Absolutely. The first is let us speak on the basis of our experience and listen to each other for understanding with curiosity and respect. We're here to explain our views and listen to the views of the other person, not to give advice or convince the other person to change in some way. 2, we're going to stick to the process for each stage of the conversation. Example, if the matter at hand is to discuss personal experiences of how we've successfully lived by the golden rule, that's all we do then, even if it means resisting the urge to tell your partner that they are wrong or misguided about something. And number 3, we give each other permission to remind each other gently if we veer off from the process, as in, right now, I think we're supposed to be doing ... So are we both on board with these goals and ground rules and ready to go?
You bet.
Okay. And the first question, I'll ask this of Cheryl, we'll go back and forth and asking questions. Why did we each decide to participate in this conversation?
Yeah, well, I decided to participate in this conversation, Donna, because I have been deeply troubled by the divisions in our country, and I've been really called in my work in democracy to help build bridges of understanding and respect. And I think living by the golden rule is a core value that can help us build those bridges of respect together in this country. How about you?
Well, I'm here because I think that the golden rule is so important and critical to use at this time. I mean, it's always been important, but I think right now it's especially important to think about it and use it during this time. So that's why I'm here. And then, did you see anything in common in why you are participating, Cheryl?
Yeah, I think we both see the importance of this time and the application of the golden rule as a practice in terms of how we would treat each other with respect and dignity. So we share that, Donna. Did you see anything?
Yes, I'm see in the chat here. I'm going to try and talk louder because people are saying I'm having trouble on that. Doesn't normally be a problem, but I will talk louder. And I think both of us are on the same page in terms of the importance of the golden rule, especially in this time, especially in America. So we are in agreement on that. Okay, and Cheryl, you can ask me?
Sure. So as we're going on to this next segment now to share something about ourselves. So Donna, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and maybe a happy memory from when you were younger? Maybe an object that was gold or golden?
Sure. I live in Northern Virginia, married for 42 years, 2 children who are now grown, 2 daughters, and they both have 2 children. 4-year-old, 3-year-old, and then 2 babies that will soon turn 1-year-old. I am thrilled over my grandchildren. They're the pride of my life. Now, you ask about to share a happy memory from when I was younger, whichever, about something that was gold, and my mind immediately goes to those gold chocolate, gold wrapped coins, right? They're wrapped in gold foil. I loved chocolate. I still love chocolate. And so eating those gold coins, they were like a treasure, a pirate's treasure. And I have very happy memories of that. Also, I don't own a lot of gold, but I've seen a lot of gold in museums. And my mind is brought back to when I was in college in Washington, D.C. They had an exhibit of the treasures of King Tut, the tomb of King Tut. There was a lot of gold there. And the reason that they had so many treasures is because it was the only tomb in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt that had not already been looted. In fact, nobody knew about it until a archaeologist found it in 1922. Carter was his name. And so those treasures now, they're on display in amazing museum in Egypt, but they've also gone on tour, and I got to see them then. Okay, how about you, Cheryl? Something about yourself and a happy memory of something that was gold or golden?
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, I live in the Washington, D.C. area as well. I'm in Maryland. I have been married to my husband, who's from France, for just 30 years now. And we really enjoy bird watching and gardening and being out in nature and honoring nature. So that's a real call and love for us. Um, and when I'm thinking about something that was golden, I do want to say, Donna, I got to see that King Tut exhibit as well. That gold was amazing, that mask. Anyway, we'll talk about that at some other time. But a memory from when I was younger is of a golden Morgan horse. I think I was about 7 or 8, and it represented for me freedom, freedom to ride in the wind, freedom to be in the joy of another living being, to feel the warmth of that golden horse, and to be part of a family moment, because my dad was always encouraging us to follow our passions, which has actually led me here today too, to follow the bridging passion. Um, and he knew I loved horses, so he would take us out on sort of family trips, and we'd look at different places. And he introduced me to, and one of these trips, to a college that was in our community, and they had horses. And so I met this golden Morgan horse, fell in love with the horse, and wanted to ride him. So I offered to muck out the stall so I could get lessons to ride the horse. And so to me, that kind of freedom and golden sense was part, and a really warm family memory is what comes up for me.
Oh, how lovely. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to ask you the next question.
Okay.
Tell me, your partner, the version of the golden rule you chose before the conversation, and explain why it resonates with you. What does living by the golden rule mean to you?
Yeah. Well, and I really appreciate the resources that were in the conversation guide that led me to different versions of the golden rule. And one that I landed on was a Native American tradition around the golden rule, which talked about respect for all life is the foundation, and we are part of the earth, and the earth is part of us. So being good to each other and living a life of honor and integrity to the great Mother Earth, to her beings, to each other, was one of the things that really resonated with me. And maybe it links a little bit to my story of the golden horse. um, but it also means to me that I will live with respect for people who are different from me, that I will live with honor to them and their humanity, and that I will try to be curious as possible, because there's another human being across from me, no matter how much we may differ, agree. This is another human being. So I loved that sort of Native American, we are part of the earth is part of us. So how about you, Donna? Will you tell me about which one resonates with you, and what does living by the golden rule mean to you?
Sure. I chose treat others the way they want to be treated. I resisted it at first because that requires some work on your part to actually find out how they want to be treated. You can't just assume that they want to be treated as you want to be treated. I think back to the Native Americans and how the settlers tried to convert them to Christianity, because wouldn't the settlers want that? Christianity had worked so well for them, shouldn't have worked well for the Native Americans. Nobody asked the Native Americans, and so there was a lot of trial and tribulation as the settlers tried to make Native Americans into more like themselves. So that's why I chose treat others the way they want to be treated. need to ask sometimes. What does living by the golden rule mean to me? It means treating everyone with respect and kindness, mercy and compassion, no matter who they are. There aren't exceptions to the golden rule, and that's a tough one. Okay, my turn to ask a question. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to ask you, discuss an example of how you have succeeded in behaving according to the golden. This would be an instance, large or small, when you did your best to live out, knowing that we often fall short. It's okay to brag here. Provide some details such as what internal or external obstacles you faced in applying the golden rule to the situation.
Well, and Donna, I think we lost a little bit of your audio, so I can reframe what I heard you say was we should discuss an example of how I've succeeded in behaving according to the golden rule in the past. And you encouraged me to even brag about it if I desire, but and then to talk maybe about some internal or external obstacles that I faced in applying the golden rule to the situation. Okay. Well, I'm going to reflect on a time when I was a director of a department that had staff, and it was in a nonprofit organization that had sort of maybe, 10 different groups of departments. And we, like many nonprofits, were facing a time of economic challenge. And so we were asked to cut things back. And in that moment, our executive director gave us sort of, you're going to cut this way and this department's going to cut that way, and really, of course, it was cutting people, because that was our most expense. And so the person in my department was named Betty, and she was the most wonderful, sweet, caring, compassionate person. And so when the executive director said, you're going to have to let her go, I just thought, well, how would I like to be treated if I were in that circumstance? And is there anything I can do differently to change this equation? And thinking of the golden rule, I talked to her, I talked to my executive director, and what we decided to do was that she would take a little bit of a cut and I would take a little bit of a cut. And of course, because I made more than her, my cut in salary would help us retain her at a part-time level. And once we got through that hard time, she remained on the staff. She was of such great service to our members. She was beloved until she passed away. She was an elderly woman. And I think that idea of how one might think about wanting to be treated, putting yourself in their shoes, and figuring out something that nobody else had seen before as a solution. Yeah, that was one of the things I did. And I think the obstacles that created were, well, it created a little economic hardship for my family, I'll be honest. It unfortunately created a little resentment in other departments who didn't think in that creative way or didn't want to make that same kind of offering that I did. But those were only temporary, and the upside and the outcome was, once we got through that hard moment, we were made whole again, both Betty and myself. And we were able to be in that caring, wonderful space together to continue the service we were doing. So I don't know, That's one of my stories of living by the golden rule.
Wow, it's a great story. Mine is entirely different, but another, it's something small. When you hear about it, it was very big for me. So in my case, I was there with my two young daughters at a theme park in Florida, and it was time for lunch. So we went into a cafeteria, and it was one of these deals where you take a tray and then you move the tray along and you pick what food you want. And then at the end, there's a cashier and they ring you up. So the very first thing that they had on this line that you could see were desserts. And oh my Lord, there was this amazing 3-layer chocolate cake. I really wanted it. It looked so good. But I thought, you know, here I am with my two daughters, would not be setting a good example. So no, I'm not going to do this. And I took two hamburger platters for them and snaked along the line because it was very crowded until I got to the cashier. Now the cashier unfortunately rang up 2 cheeseburger platters, which are more expensive. And I looked at the line and I looked at her and I thought, oh, I don't want her to have to void the sale and ring it up again. That would be stressful for her. It would be time consuming. Never mind. So I told her, never mind. It's okay. We'll pay for the 2 cheeseburger platters, even though it was more expensive. And then we took them. We sat down at a table. I had what they call maybe a little bit of a helper's, what they call it, helper's glow, you know, because whenever you do something nice to somebody else, you feel good about yourself. That was it. And then a short while later, a staff member comes over to me. And what was he bringing? A piece of that amazing chocolate cake. And he gave it to me. He said, it's from the cashier. She appreciates your flexibility and what you did. As I say, it was something small, but for me, it was proof positive. I don't believe in coincidences. So for me, it was a reminder that when you give, you receive. Usually it's not something quite so obvious as a piece of chocolate cake. You know, normally it is maybe that little bit of happiness or glow that you get when you've done something nice, when you treated others nicely. But in that one case, and that's why I'll never forget it, that piece of chocolate cake symbolized to me a tangible receiving after giving somebody else. That's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. Okay, and then it asks, what do you learn about how you and the other person view the golden rule and successfully behaved according to the golden rule in the past? Do you see anything in common? Cheryl?
Yeah, I think, again, I'm going to go back to sort of being kind and being of service. And I love that the universe served that chocolate cake to you, Donna. That is so wonderful. And yeah, that piece of seeing somebody else, maybe, and other somebodies in need, and saying, well, I'm gonna set a good example. I'm gonna, be part of creating maybe something better with that other person in mind. So I could see us having similarities in that way. How about you?
Yeah, I love how in your case, it was somebody that you knew that you were kind to and impacted her life in a positive way. In my case, it was a total stranger. But whether they're a stranger or somebody we know, we can have that positive impact by living according to the golden rule with them, positive for them and psychically at least, if not through a piece of chocolate cake, positive for us as well.
Well, and I think you also set a model for your girls, huh? For your kids about living with that way, with thoughtfulness and kindness for another. And that to me is one of the beautiful seeds that I think continues to sprout among the people that see us, or that, see that kind of model of our action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I'm gonna have to, now that I've mentioned this, next time I talk to them, I'm gonna have to, I doubt that they remember the story like I do, but I'm gonna have to share it with them because now they are raising children of their own. And yeah, I'm also gonna recommend that they engage in one-to-one golden rule conversations this
All
summer.
right. All right. Me too. Friends and family. They're part of our web of connection, huh? Okay. Should we go on to the next question then?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So Donna, would you tell me in what areas of your life or with what kind of people do you find it hardest to live by the golden rule? And I'm going to encourage you to go deep on this one. Are there certain relatives or coworkers or neighbors or people with other political beliefs or different racial or ethnic backgrounds that may come to mind as you share this area of your life?
Yes, I've thought about this. Um, and I think the answer is white men as a category. When I come in contact with uh, members of minorities or other women or children, I automatically treat those, I'm outgoing with people like that. Super friendly. I'm not a super extrovert, but I try to be very friendly with people who I think fall into categories where maybe they've had some kind of tough experience in the past. It's all in my mind, of course. This is all based on stereotypes, but that women may have had tough times, members of minorities may have had tough times. Whereas white men in society tend to be at the top of the heap, relatively speaking. And this is bad. I'm not applying the golden rule as I should. I have no idea what any particular white man that I may be standing next to has gone through. I don't know what his life is like. I don't know what hardships he has had to face. And I realize I should be treating everybody, including white men, with that type of compassion, mercy, love, and kindness that I would wish people to treat me with and that I generally treat others with. So this is, it's something, sometimes you've got to think hard about where you find your failings and your faults. And so this, for me, is an area that I need to work on in terms of applying the golden rule to. Okay, Cheryl, same question for you. In what areas of your life or with what kinds of people do you find it hardest to live by the golden rule?
Yeah. Well, you know, I've come from most of my life being involved in sort of civic and democracy work and working for freedom and respect and dignity in my career and in the upbringing that I had. And so I would say the people I find it hardest to live by the golden rule with are people who are now embracing authoritarianism. I have worked with students from South Africa. I have worked with people from China. I've worked uh, people in Poland and formerly Eastern Europe who were, really seeking their freedom and democracy. And so I've had a little hard time kind of understanding um, the sort people who are gravitating now in our country as we live with this banquet of riches of democracy and the possibilities that can bloom from it to be gravitating towards sort of authoritarian tendencies. So I am challenging myself to understand more, and to the point you made about, I have not walked in their shoes. I have walked in shoes I've understood in my own life what economic hardship can mean. And I know it can create fear. And as I read more, as I understand more, I think many people who are gravitating towards sort of authoritarian messages or leaders are living with some level of fear of loss, decline. They may feel they're becoming less relevant. I don't know, I don't know their story, but it is incumbent on me, if I really want to live by practicing the golden rule, to understand their stories better, to see them not as monolithic. Even I say authoritarians, well, what does that mean? That's a pretty wide brush. But yeah, so to me, that's where I want to live more, be in more curiosity, explore more the places of life of somebody who's gravitating now towards authoritarianism. And I know this is not an effort to convert anybody. It is, for me, a way to understand, because ultimately, like I said in the beginning, every human being is a human being standing across from me or engaging in my community, or whatever, and their mothers and fathers and or daughters and sons or partners or husbands and wives. They live and care about their community, generally speaking, right? So this is where I want to put my path of exploration on living more fully with integrity to the golden rule.
Okay. And it asks, what did you learn about yourself and about the other person regarding the challenges in living by the golden rule? And do you see anything in common? And I think both of us have chosen people that to us represent something other than the way that we want to be, and realize that it's incumbent on us to apply the golden rule to those people as well. And Cheryl, you had mentioned earlier a documentary that actually had been nominated for an Oscar called Stranger at the Gate. Would you mind talking about that a little bit? Because I think it applies to what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, such a powerful documentary, Donna. It's about a gentleman who served, I believe, in the Iraq War. He's a veteran, came back to this country um, full of rage and fear. Had lived, a life of community, I think, before going to war. A really loving family man, and his thought when he got back to the United States after a bit of time was that he was going to physically take out people in his community that he thought were a threat. And this was, I think, Sikh, as I remember, but maybe Muslim community, I'm sorry. Anyway, he ended up being welcomed by them because they treated him from moment one with respect as a human being. He was welcomed in. He was given a hug. He was heard, embraced, accepted. And he ended up not only scrapping that horrible experience, but actually coming to be in a service role within that community in his town. So profound story of possibility when something like a golden rule is practiced with others who may be different from you.
Yeah, and he had gone to their house of worship to case it, right?
Yeah.
To see, what the vulnerabilities were so that he could go in and shoot it up and kill people.
Yeah.
And they just treated him with love, this absolute love. And it goes to show that when people truly, truly practice the golden rule and that extending compassion for everybody, that it can change that person. It can change the outcome. And it certainly did in that case. It's just beautiful. And that's available online at A Stranger at the Gate.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Thank you, Donna. That's, yeah, a good reminder.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we learned about ourselves regarding challenges is, again, that we find it's challenging for us to apply the golden rule in certain situations, maybe where we're judging people,
Yeah. Yeah.
where we really, if we're honest, don't know what's going on inside their heads. We don't know what's motivating them. And so if we treat them with the compassion, love, kindness, and mercy that we say that we want to do, that it could be beneficial
Yeah.
and common.
Yeah. That really, that word that you use, judgment, and not holding it and not assuming, making assumptions about somebody because of how they look or what they wear, or that's to be in genuine human inquiry with another person. Yeah, it is the core ingredient, I think, um, in having something like the golden rule build and guide towards a loving, accepting engagement and embrace of our differences. I mean, we should value, we value those differences, right? But I think your point about not assuming from the beginning or being in judgment is an important piece that we share.
Yeah. So in this case, just like my piece of chocolate cake, kind of, being a bright flashing red light there. Hey, and the movie A Stranger at the Gate shows again, just spot on how practicing compassion toward everyone, even people who may think of you as the enemy, is so important. So you want to ask me the next question?
Sure. So, how might you try to practice the golden rule in the areas of your life or with the kinds of people you've identified as difficult for you, Donna?
Yeah. So I need to, whenever I know there's an issue, I need to head right toward it, right? Um, Trying to get around it, over it, under it, that never works. You've got to go through it. At least I've found. So I need to go toward white men. I need, when I see a white man in a group situation, I have and I'm trying to think of who am I going to talk to and be friendly to. I need to go to that guy. Of course, I want to be friendly with everybody, but that's somebody I need to be especially friendly toward. And that will help me work through this area that I need to do better with when it comes to the golden rule. How about you, Cheryl?
Yeah, I think I need to seek out and really genuinely listen to people who are espousing authoritarian beliefs. And because I live in a community that doesn't have many, but I do know a couple people uh, who may lean that way. I think I'm going to have to explore maybe like a Zoom conversation or really genuinely, asking them to talk with me and to be really in earnest inquiry with them and really to hold them with, um, uh, as much listening as I can, and to really find those places of commonality within our humanity together. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
something. Yeah,
Good for you. Good, good. This reminds me of Daryl Davis, who
yeah,
the film Accidental Courtesy was about. Many of you may have heard of Daryl Davis, but to me, he's almost like a modern day saint. He's a Black man, a jazz musician who grew up abroad and then came back to the United States when he was like 11 or so. And what I first image I have of him, he's in a parade with the Boy Scouts. He's marching in this parade, and some people are unkind toward him, and he doesn't understand why. He doesn't get it. And his parents have to tell him, well, it's because you're Black, that's why. And what he did then was he decided to befriend members of the KKK. His question was always, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And so he would sit them down, he'd let them talk, they would talk and talk and talk and talk, and finally they get tired of talking, and that would give him an opportunity to say a few words in edgewise. And as they got to know him and as they spoke, they could see the human side of he who was Black. And as a result of doing this time and again with members of the KKK, he now has over 60 KKK robes hanging in his closet, people who decided they didn't want to be a member of that organization anymore. What he did was incredible, and certainly, I don't think most people could do that. You know, but very brave. But to me, he's somebody that we can hold up as someone to imitate. And, you know, he went in the direction that most people would flee from. He went there and it was positive.
Yeah. He is actually a model in my mind as I think about seeking out and engaging authoritarians as somebody who's worked deeply in democracy for many years. Daryl Davis is really a brave example of, you know, seeing that humanity in another and then helping them see the humanity in you.
Amazing. And then it asks, what did you find helpful or inspiring about efforts your partner may undertake to live by the golden rule in the future? Again, you're talking about going there, going through rather than around, above, or under when it comes to people who espouse authoritarian rules. And we both hold up Daryl Davis as a model or example of somebody who we can try to emulate when we feel it's important for us to have conversations with people that might otherwise, you know, we might not otherwise approach for various reasons.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, I was inspired, Donna, by your, you know, your example of really walking through it. I mean, I think that helped me, that helps reinforce me with a little courage to have the kind of conversations that I want to have, and that myself not being afraid to walk through it, to walk into that that challenge. And, you know, of course, mindfulness about, you know, your own safety is obviously important. And Daryl Davis, you know, pretty brave in many circumstances that his actual life could have been threatened. But you know, so I was inspired by your sharing of that desire to walk towards as well. And I think that's something that we share. And you know, one of the things I learned from, or one of the things maybe that moves me in some ways, is that when other people are showing courage, it helps give me courage also to do that. So yeah.
It's not hard, except for how hard we make it in our minds and how much fear we have in our minds. So somebody like Daryl Davis helps to give us, as you said, you know, helps give us courage to do those things.
Right. Well, I guess we should talk a little bit about the next question, huh, Donna?
Yeah.
How might you apply the golden rule to the issue of, let's say, immigration?
Yes, we have a choice here, immigration, homelessness, and we decided beforehand that we'd talk about immigration, right? So this is a hard one. For me, I have three grandparents who were immigrants, and then the fourth was a great grandparent who was an immigrant. I'm so pleased they came here from Italy, Germany, and Denmark is where they came from. And I'm reminded of of course, it's so difficult to talk about these days because it's got so politicized, unfortunately. I'm reminded of the story of the starfish, which you probably heard, that there is a man walking along a beach, and he saw another person who was picking up starfish from the sand and throwing them back in the ocean. And this man was looking at the other person again and again, throwing starfish into the ocean. And he finally goes up to him and he says, what are you doing? There's so many starfish out here on the sand. You can't possibly save all of them. And the other person picked up a starfish, threw it into the ocean, said, well, I saved that one. So these days, there are 100 million displaced persons in the world, 100 million. Now, some of them are internally displaced. They're in their own country, but not living where they would want to live. And many of them are in other countries who would go back if they could to their home country, but they cannot for various reasons. 100 million, okay? And so it is, I had to look up some statistics on this one. So it is true that the United States has got the largest number of immigrants in the world living in our country. As of 2023, there were 50 million immigrants living in our country. That's 15% of the population. And this is 4 times higher than the next highest country, which is Germany. Okay. But when you compare it as a percent of population, so immigrants in your country as a percent of population, we're not even in the top 30. So some of the Middle Eastern countries are the highest. So example, the UAE is 88% of people in their country are immigrants. The Qatar is 77%. But when you look at the countries that I would traditionally compare us to, Australia, remember I said we're 15%, Australia is 30%, New Zealand is 29%, Canada is 21%, Germany is 19%. So it kind of depends on how you look at it in terms of, can we accept more immigrants? And of course, our unemployment rate now is 3.6%. It's incredibly low. There are a lot of companies begging for employees. And it's also the case that we have capped asylum seekers accepted in 2022 to 125,000, but actually ended up taking in just 25,000 in 2022. And I also saw that the legal immigrants, the people who are green card holders, and these do include people seeking humanitarian protection. In 2021, it was 740,000 in the United States. In 2010, it was 1,042,000. The highest number was 1.8 million in 1992. So we are well below what we have taken in the past. So it's really difficult in terms of the politics of it. And nobody wants to be seen as easy on immigrants these days. And certainly, but we last talked about this in Congress in 2013. And in 2013, we seemed to be headed towards some type of solution, at least including dreamers. And then everything fell apart. So it's been that long since we've even thought about some type of immigration bill. And now nothing could get done, even if somebody wanted to try. What are your thoughts, Cheryl?
Yeah, well, I think this is a really important subject, and it's personal, it's close to me. I too have grandparents and great grandparents that immigrated, and I'm married to a man who immigrated from France. So the idea that one is welcomed into a country, and a country that, at least the story I was raised on, is, from the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. We are the part of the beauty of our country is the rich tapestry that comes to us through the migration of many people into an American experience. And I think applying the golden rule, thinking about those 100 million people who are in some kind of migratory experience, or whether in their country or to our country, to another country, you know remembering that they're human beings too. Their mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, partners, they are seeking a better life. They go through incredible challenges to uproot themselves from what is their home, sort of their beloved family members, many, to be part of a life of promise or opportunity or safety. And I'm thinking here, the United States. And to me, I think not only is that part of our important American story that I've always held dear enough to the point where one of my best friends is an immigrant, where my husband is an immigrant, where my heritage comes from immigrants. I believe in that story of possibility. And I believe that in the story of welcoming people to be part of our national fabric. And so when I think of policymakers and the desire to do something about immigration, by we the American people, not only for the jobs that we have open that are unfilled, your point earlier, Donna, but also to the fact that it continues to contribute to the American vibrancy, the possibility, the differences, the ideas that come from different life experiences. I guess I would call on them, remind them of that, and ask them to put aside their partisan fundraising and the vitriolic mobilization of fear to serve the American good and the goodness that comes through the diversity of many different life experiences coming into our country. So that's how I would apply the golden rule to immigration myself.
Yeah, I agree. And I start thinking of all the immigrants who contributed so much to our country, from Albert Einstein to some of our high-tech people on Silicon Valley to, you name it. Immigrants have contributed so much to our country. And that, to me, that's always been the secret of the success of the United States, was we take in people from around the world who are highly motivated to get here. And so we end up taking in some of the best people who want to come to our shores. Just kind of put a hold on that.
And that passion. I tell you, I'm probably a little soft at heart, but you will. When my husband went through his naturalization ceremony, everybody in that room, everybody who was getting their citizenship, was so filled with excitement and possibility and that kind of energy you were just talking about, Donna. And I thought, this is the best of us, really, that we offer this place for people to come and thrive and contribute and be part of that American fabric.
Yeah. I wonder if part of the problem is, sure, your husband was from France and my relatives were from Europe. And now some of the people who are trying to come in are from Central and South America, or from Africa,
Yeah.
or the Middle East. So they're different in that respect. Where they're not different is that they are human beings with the same hopes and dreams of everybody else who has sailed past the Statue of Liberty.
Mhm.
So why can't we be accepting of other people who might look a little different from us, who might worship a little different from us, but are good, motivated, incentivized people who would add to the richness of the American fabric. You know, having said that, we can't take everybody, you know, we can't throw all the starfish back into the ocean, but it seems to me that we can do more than we're doing. And we have in the past done more than we're doing.
And your point is we're not even meeting the threshold numbers that you cited that are that we're eligible to have immigrate.
Yeah, in terms of refugees, that you
Yeah,
said we've
from
taken
refugees, right.
25,000 and we've actually spent 25,000.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you.
Why? Well, with these kinds of conversations, you never solve the world's problems, but you can put down a marker as to where you stand on them, and that's important.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, so the last question is, what are we each taking with us from this conversation about the Golden Rule?
Well, I'm taking from it a deepened sense of my own responsibility to live the golden rule as fully as possible in my life. To also that there's hope and courage and respect and I think new possibilities for our country. I'm going to live in that kind of energy. And I'm appreciative to you, Donna, for not only helping create this moment and this opportunity, but for helping us sort of reflect, helping you and I reflect in this conversation, and then, you know, helping others join in this reflecting and living by the golden rule. Yeah, that's what I'm taking from this conversation. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. It's really about ourselves. That the conversation, as much as I appreciate the steps that you're going to take and all that, the conversation is really, it's about me and how I live the golden rule. This kind of crystallizes, the conversation crystallizes what I can do, the steps that I can take, how important living by the golden rule is for me. So I'm taking from this conversation that commitment to go out and do better. Because can't we all do better? There is something here. It says some partners find it useful to check in with each other at a later date to see how they're doing. Efforts to live by the golden rule. Decide if you want to do this. So Cheryl, would you be okay if I contacted you again in, I don't know, maybe a month or so and see how you're doing?
Yeah, sure. I would love that, Donna. And would you be? It was a little hard to hear you, but it was like, how are we carrying this forward? Was that the question?
Yeah, and that some people, I'm so sad you couldn't hear that part. I did close out a lot of windows. But that some people find it helpful to just check in with each other after a while.
Yeah, that
Because
would help me.
yeah, what that's about is kind of giving us an incentive to try and live by the golden rule so that when I talk to you, I can say, well, I did this, I did that.
Yes, yes. I would really value that, Donna. And would you want to do that with me as well?
Of course I will. Yes. And because I like you so much as a person, it'd just be an excuse to talk to you again.
Me too.
Well, good. So I know that Felipe has been putting in the chat some links, and these links will also be appearing on the Charter for Compassion Golden Rule page. So there's a link to this one-to-one conversation. As you can see, it is a structured conversation that lasts an hour. And so there's a link to the conversation. You can, of course, choose your own partner for this conversation. But if you want, there's a link, another link that you can use. There's a form, you can sign up, and we will find a partner for you for the one-to-one Golden Rule conversation. So there's also that opportunity. And Cheryl, would you talk about the other opportunity for the National Week of Conversation?
Yeah, thank you, Donna. On April 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we are going to have and offer a Golden Rule one-on-one conversation, again, using this guide. It's part of a National Week of Conversation where hundreds of groups are getting together and offering different resources to help us bridge our divides in this country. So if you're interested, Felipe put a link in the chat to register for this. But if you're listening to us and not seeing the chat, if you would go to citizenconnect.us and look for a session on April 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern that is called A Golden Rule One-on-One Conversation for Polarized Times. You can find the registration link there as well. And please come join us. You'll have a chance to be paired there for having your own conversation like Donna and I've had.
Yeah, so as I understand it, we'll all start out together, and then people will be put in breakout rooms, 2 people at a time, so that they can have the conversation using the conversation guide, paired with somebody they don't know, but maybe somebody they'll end up getting to know better, right?
First of all, thank you so much to both of you for going through this conversation guide, for creating this document for people to practice and have meaningful conversations and deep conversations that are inspired through the Golden Rule. What a wonderful thing. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, Donna, Cheryl, and everybody else that has been attending and watching us through Facebook. This recording will be available on our YouTube channel during this week, and all the links will be added there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy Golden Rule Day.
Hey, happy Golden Rule Day.